Hello. This is the ninth episode of what I have dubbed the 88 series. It's been 2 months since I posted the last video. Whenever you're watching this, it will still have been 2 months ago from this video. Um, so I started, when did I start posting these? About 7 months ago. 7. Okay. Um, what was I gonna say? Okay. Um, if you've watched the other videos, you're aware. If you haven't, what's up? I taught a class, and really it was me sharing over 100 pages of notes that I took in like a 2 week period, and felt like I have to deliver this information. Like this isn't just for me. And so I'm saying this right now because that was from December 2024 to May 2025. And then some many months later, I started filming the information from that class, which was called The Grain of Salt Journey. It was more of a journey than a class. And this is the 88 series, the repackaging of that. Right now, from it is currently February 2026, and since I wrapped up the class, the journey, a lot of things that I touched on have come into a more collective lens. And so I'm not sharing this to be like, told you so, because I don't, it's not fun to be like, I feel like I'm always kind of like, excuse me, do you guys see these other things going on? Or what, what do you feel is like this, not overall story, because there's more than one thing going on, and I'm not here to tell anyone how to see things, but there's a certain layer or fabric of reality that I feel very connected to. And so, um, right now, is when everyone's going through the Epstein files. So if you're watching that, whenever you're watching this, that's the timing. And not to say that everything in those files is true, but if you have watched this series, one of the focuses is that in a pseudoscientific way, supposedly, everything's connected, and that acknowledgement is one of the only things we can do for certain things. And that's important because so much has been suppressed and kept in certain labels and packages as secret when truly it's been like atrocious and nefarious acts that have been committed. And then there goes a storyline and a timeline, and they weave together in this super magical, clever way that we're alive during a time of not being able to tell what is AI to a degree. Like maybe you have a keen eye. I'm pretty good at like, oh, videos, whatever. But there's also writing. There's so many layers where it's not all bad, not all good. However, I feel like there is a time and a place for being able to say, yeah, I don't like that. We got to change that, instead of just saying it's good or it's bad or whatever. And so, kind of freaky to be in this position of sharing certain things that I feel, but it's not like just for entertainment. Like fuck all this. Like honestly, like all these people sharing stuff for likes and views because of money, like I really just don't think people, and not to be like I get it all, but like I I really feel like in a serious way people need to take more steps back than they maybe are willing to, because it is our pride and ego at times that can be like our own worst enemy and like master deceptor, where we are and I'm not saying we can control everything, but like, sometimes it's the same people who are saying energy, like what you focus on expands. And then every day they're talking about the worst things that could happen. And then sometimes in the undertones, it is this ecclesiastical message of like it being about religion in some way, or at least about God, or a God or something that, I'm not here to debate any of that. Like I've mentioned, I purposely did not pay attention in school pretty much at all, to a degree, because I was like, we're living in a weird time of uh we don't know, long games of telephone going on, yada yada, all that to say, I do feel it's very important to not necessarily dismiss things as fake in a certain way, rather than calling everything fake, doing certain research to like understand maybe in an egregorical, I don't know if that's a word, but an egregorical sense, what is happening? What is this? And what is the nature of a holographic reality where, let's say, we can't control everything, but we can see how everything is in anything and anything is in everything, and what exists without in some way exists in our lives, where no, we might not be murdering and pillaging and raping and doing all these awful things, that we can make these extreme contrasts in terms of good or bad, but we can be an asshole. And I'm not saying we need to be like perfect angels and all get along, whatever that means. But what I'm saying is like this is not like that is where the trick is. The consistent and insistent search to be the person posting whatever to then say I told you so. So I'm my intention is that whoever sees these is who is meant to see these, because I am certainly not for everyone. And I like fiddle my hands around while I'm recording, because I don't feel that comfortable talking about certain things. Not because I'm not confident in a certain way, but like I'm just me. I think there's a big responsibility when it comes to sharing with other people. And I lived my life in a certain way from age one onward, especially where like I find it incredibly hard to relate to people, and I don't really understand what's going on a lot of the time around me. So there does feel like somewhat of responsibility within me and my persona, and a role that I can play collectively, or at least communally. I don't know. I don't know words. But where I can share from this perspective and say, like, hey, maybe there's another way to look at this. I don't have the resolution, but I could say, I promise you there's not just one thing going on. And I just feel like right now it's really important that don't listen to me. Really think about how much you might want to fast track getting the truth or having a certain answer, and how absorbing and assimilating to other people's ideologies is like maybe not the right. I didn't see, as soon as I said right, I'm like, I don't want to tell you what to do. It's not my job either. But what I'm saying is that might not be the path. The path might be going a little crazy. Maybe it's not what you want. But if there's someone else around you talking about, let's say, if you do ABC for God, you will make a bunch of money and have all the things you want. Does that also sound like everything you actually truly want? Or is there another story embedded there where we have an overlay? Doesn't even need to be like possession, demonic possession, or all these other things. Like I understand. I mean, clearly this series, I'm like going through all these things that are a little bit, people want to be like, oh, I'm woo woo, whatever. I like looking at these different layers of things, but I think if we can truly take a look at our own nature, we can see the ways in which we are, I forget what I was saying just now because I have to get to this and there's something pulling me back, but where we might be. Again, maybe it's more of an egregore kind of energy that's going on in certain ways. And sometimes I like to look at entities as like emotional energy and demon as thought energy, but even demon, emotion, demotion. I don't know, I'm just, a dumb etymology nerd. Um, that was not etymology. I just so I don't even know what to call that. I like to dissect the letters and the shapes. Um, but we can see the scales of where these things are pointed towards in a certain way, and yet sometimes the hardest things to do is to be ourselves. And when we find ourselves in situations where we're not in the right places or around the right people, we are an asshole, or we are an abuser, or we are an oppressor, or we are whatever it is. Not to say that it has to be in the sense of like hurting big groups of people, but like I truly think there's a certain lens of awareness that could be considered more deeply in a way where things are taken seriously. And something I say is like taking the path or life seriously, but not taking yourself too seriously, because Um, we can have hubris, we can be pompous, we can be afraid in ways where we want to act like we know what's going on and talk about how the normies don't get it or whatever. And like I kind of want to say I promise you that like it is so much more worth it in the end, whatever that means. Again, not telling you what to do or how to think, but that like not everything is about planning everything so it's perfect and understand like really think about how that would make sense in this place, and that is it just modern people who understand things and we're smart and they were dumb. Like, come on guys, we can do this. All right, okay. I'm sure at some point I said there that I didn't come back to or finish, but like I said, I wanted to get to this. So this is the 88 series, the ninth episode. I'm really excited for this one because we're headed into, am I speaking really fast? I feel like I'm, but I mean, I do that. Like that is how I be. But I'm not gonna say I'm sorry because honestly, I'm just sitting in my room by myself. Well, Bob is here with me. But I'm saying that I don't want to uh deter anyone from receiving the information. And even me saying this, you know what? Doesn't matter what I want. People who need to hear whatever, it will happen. And even me delivering this, expressing it, I already did it in a class. It's out there. I don't need to worry about saving anyone or anything like that. Okay. So what I was gonna say is that we are venturing into a territory here in this episode, led from the last one, which again, like I said, I was posted over 2 months ago, so I don't even know. It's interesting with the planetary retrogrades and stuff and the collective themes. Like, I love sharing this information, and it's so incredibly interesting to me how hard it is for me to get it out. So today is actually the Lunar New Year. It is the new moon solar eclipse. It's February 17th. It is so I'll share a little bit of that stuff. It's the year of the fire horse. Some would say the red fire horse or the crimson fire horse. We are also officially in the third year of a 20-year period called Yun 9, and the name of it is Li. So it's a 60-year period, split into 20-year cycle, or it's 60 year. Okay, let's not get into all that. Just this 20-year period. Um, from 2024 to like 2043-ish, that this is a fire energy as well. And so there's this big boost of fire. I did a general reading for this Lunar New Year, and I've been calling it the Crimson Fire Wing Pegasus, or just Fire Pegasus, because the Fire Wing Pegasus is apparently something from Yu-Gi-Oh! And I have no, I'm not versed at all in the lore of Yu-Gi-Oh, but I find it interesting what pings in my mind, and then what I find online that I'm like, oh, that fits. So there's something of like a unicorn energy here, or Pegasus, both like gaining wings in some way. And so of course it is traditionally just the fire horse year, which in the last 360-year cycles, you can see through patterns and what there is to written history that there are certain things that could repeat themselves. I don't want to say like I have a good feeling about this, but right now, my day, I'm trying to be intentional today and not control everything, but also enjoy the direction that I'm taking things in. And so I felt called to record this, and that's interesting to me because it wasn't at all my plan. But again, I love sharing this information. And then I thought, maybe today would be a good vibe to share that, not just with what's going on right now, because I have no expectations on this sort of video series meeting, like meeting people in a massive way, because like for one, they're long, I'm long-winded. That's not for everybody. It is a long series, but again, I'm reinforcing that we don't need everything in these snapshots. I don't even like to read, so you will not. I have never used AI beyond, and I turned it off wherever I can turn it off. But beyond like DuckDuckGo or a Google search or whatever, and it will pull up like the AI response first. And I'm not saying this in like a pompous, like, I haven't used AI. No, I don't even like being here. I don't like to read. I don't like to get caught in stories that I don't need to be a part of because everything's connected anyway, and I'll know what I need to know when I need to know it. I fucking I know it's scary, but like things work out in a really cool way that you're like, whoa, I could have never planned this, and yet we are a part of everything, subconscious, conscious, unconscious, whatever. So like there is a knowingness even within the unknown that is like a magnetic, electric, something else ick um pulse, and we don't need AI to shorten things. So again, you can watch this at a quicker speed, even though sometimes I'll be talking fast anyway. And maybe you are like me and also do enjoy videos, and also, yeah, I will speed up videos myself. I'm not saying that we can't control the timing of things, but I do know what I'm saying is there is a point and there's a reason why I am relaying these videos this way, and it is not because I have thought out everything. And like, for other people, cool, great. For me, it's not how my life works. And when I try to do that, it implodes and I like get sick or whatever. So I'm really just trying to also embed that energy within this and have it project out, not in a forceful way, not in a manipulative way, but in a I'm fucking done being in a certain space where I am wearing masks that I don't need to anymore. And so maybe you can't relate to me in all the ways, but there's something there where you also feel like there is, even amongst, woo-woo groups or people who talk about weird stuff, you still feel like a fucking freak in a certain way. And maybe it's because you're like me and you're very sweet. I'm a sassy, grumpy old man in a certain way, for sure. But I'm also very sweet and it bothers people. I don't need to be friends with everybody, but I really feel like people should just mind their fucking business. People, okay, I'm not gonna go on another rant because now we're just staring at this screen. Okay, so let's do this. This is potentially the last slide of the last video. I don't remember though. Okay, so let's just go on that after my 15 plus minute intro. Pisces, ferrum phosphate, cell salt number 4. I also want to say that this solar eclipse today is an Aquarius eclipse under true sky or 13 sign true sidereal and tropical. And maybe I'm wrong on true sky. I don't keep up with all the things astrologically. I enjoy astrology, but I don't like any of the calendars, so I'm definitely not here to tell you which exact structure to follow. However, I think it's cool that there is an Aquarian theme here, and it is the initial introduction of the ushering out of the Pisces North Node. So let's honor that here in some way. It is logical, and again, I should add it like I keep saying, so I'm gonna whatever. Salvation by doctors. Carrie and Perry, right? All right, so I'm just gonna try my best to paste that at the bottom of things because I want to um I want to give that credit. Okay. Sorry, I got distracted because I was like, what things do I have open up here? I want the energy to just be on this. Okay. It is logical and, with astrology and biochemistry as means of proof, irrefutable to believe that the air, and especially the higher stratas, are filled with invisible specks or atoms of ferrum. And if you might hear Bob snoring now and then, just FYI. Many people can even see them, but have thought it some defect of vision. Defect, but defect came out. The geometric the geometrical plan of man within the circle places the feet over the head. This is also true of the child in utero. It must naturally follow, since all that is true of the macrocosm is true of the microcosm, talking holography, the latter being of small proportion only. Therefore, the watery ether above is filled with the smallest particles of iron, the same as the iron in the earth and in man's body. Without iron, there would be no means whereby ether could penetrate either into man's body or the body of the earth. Let us analyze the word iron or ferrum and find the solution of its secret. Its Latin term is ferrum, and it is derived from the root of the verb ferro, meaning to create, to form, to bear, therefore to give birth to. Is any further proof required that it is the salt necessary for the existence of all things? It actually bears life, carries life. And at the bottom, I put iron and iron, as in the Saturn, the urn of Saturn, or the urn from which Aquarius is being poured out of, that urn. Our I see eyes. I see ice. I through eyes. Eyes. I see through ice. I see ice. Oh, so interesting. This is something I have shared about before, but continue to dive back to in awe, especially because I enjoy how crazy and stupid I sound to most people at this point. So, etheric iron or meteoric iron is naturally precipitated in the snow. And in parentheses, the theme again being frozen, where I capitalized the letters O and Z, as in Oz. So thinking back also to Halia and Himalaya, which shout out to Courtney's Halia is a sheep, I believe, right? She birthed a baby recently, and her existence is wrapped and intertwined within the grain of salt journey and an honoring of Halia. Have you heard the term visual snow? This is what I think of when I read about these iron particles in the air. And it makes me think of the fabric of reality showing itself a bit more. Glistening, you could say. Almost as if some sort of linear shift is at play here, beyond our imaginations, and yet including what we have felt and envisioned and believed. Like when I say that sounds from or of birds and whales have been used in movies to, represent creepy or scary things, when in actuality, even when it comes to that which we cannot see, it doesn't mean that it's all evil. A philosophy I have had since I was very young is the idea that we must and we already do include the unknown and the unseen, and we believe in it. Like, I think I sound crazy to people because it's so simple to treat everything like it's alive, but it goes against perceived convention. I learned that this is also somewhat of a way, something people call animism. Like I said, I probably sound stupid, and I'm not saying that to be like, oh, I probably sound stupid, but no, legit, I intentionally didn't pay attention in school across the board in certain ways, because I didn't want to lose my own inner gnosis. And so there are things I learn about as an adult that I'll be like, oh, interesting. And some things I'm like, maybe I should have read a little bit more or something. But no, everything's great actually how it is. So let me continue. Um, it is goes beyond perceived convention to treat things like everything is alive in some way. It doesn't mean that everything has a human nature to it. No, no, no. But that there is a consciousness shared here, and it's a full spectrum. It's a wide, full spectrum. There are things you can more easily see and make sense of, but other things you need more perspective. So, an example, and when I was little, I would go on and on about this, and I found a picture recently. I'll share it if I find it, at some point while I'm recording these, where I would talk to my mom about when I put on this one jacket that was very long and that it covered up a lot of my body, and I would say, how do you know my body's really there when you can't see it? And of course, you just thought I was being like a goofy little kid, but no, I was like deeply contemplating that which we perceive to exist and that which we see or feel or believe in, and how there's a place for it, and yet we can also, I didn't say this when I was little, but the word I often use is mind fuck ourselves. So it doesn't have to be a bad thing, doesn't have to be a good thing, but a way that we can so you can do it in many different ways, but where we could, let's say, tap more into the scene, tap out of the scene and into the felt, or into both, or what we believe in, and experience life from multiple planes of reality while understanding that there is a focal point that is us that we experience at, and it's not about being self-centered in a pejorative way, but being self-centered in like a be centered in thyself. So, okay. You can easily see the front of your body, but in order to see the back of your body, you may need a mirror, um, or a camera. You could take a picture and then look at the picture. You might need another person's perspective, like, hey, is there something on my butt? Um, to make more sense of it. I don't know why that's what I said, but that's what I said. You can easily see the outside of your body, but in order to see the inside of your body, you may need a scan or a camera. Like one time when I was really sick, I swallowed a blinking camera as a pill, boop, 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 and took pics. In some form or modality, like, some type of intuitive, imaginative energy work or skill or imagination, applied kinesiology, muscle testing, etc., to make more sense of it all. And yet we believe in these things still. We trust in them. We know the inside of our bodies exist, even though we can't see it. So sometimes when people are talking about things we can see and what makes sense, it's like, well, you're already really acknowledging things in a way that, like, you don't know what you look like in a lot of ways, but you might think you do because you're focused on, like, let's say how you look in the front more than the back. But even that, it's not about how things look. I'm speaking to going beyond these frameworks and these lenses where that which is conventional is not just what is taught in certain ways or normalized, but there's a whole package where it's a feeling, it's you could say egregor, it's a concept, it's a lived experience. So it's not just something you want to rush through and have something. And I mean, again, do what you want, but I'm saying that, like, some of the things going on, some of the changes that people want to make, changes individuals might want to make, whatever it is, it's like, to have the foresight to know of a feeling and a direction you want to move towards, but also take a look at how you've been and the choices you've made when you've believed something, and you've been like, I'm right and I don't care who, blah blah, and then something happens and you're like, world crumble, or your brain and you do the other thing where you're like, "Zoop, no, I am right." And so such is the experience you have. But if you're able to step back and have the perspective to go, you know what? There are times I think I'd be knowing it all. And when I'm in it, I'm in it. And I really feel it. So you can say, well, I'm not going to do that. You could say, you know what, I'll be more open to things and I'll pay attention. I'll anchor in to the feeling of that feeling. So I know when I'm having an experience of feeling a need to defend or prove something in a way that it's like, what is that? Maybe it's a little bit of programming and it's not you in a certain way. Not you as in you're possessed, but again, there is like overlay energy is the way I feel best, where we learn or assimilate in a way, and we are these beings that are electric and magnetic and all these other things. And so it is a whole experience. It is not just a list of things. It is not just a post to tap on or click on. Like there's a lot going on here in a way that you can say, okay, um, let me see that I have, okay, the other option also, what I was going to say is that you could just not try to force yourself to change and let yourself be emotional and dive into things as well. You can do whatever you want. Like, I love being like, what the fuck, and flipping out at something. And then, however long after that, being like, whoa, guess I needed a little flipsy outie. And what got me is something that was, could have been a lot worse. And I find that it's important that we practice letting ourselves experience a fuller spectrum of what we call emotion, because I think when we try to control that, it does become us in some way, where people are equating a perceived sense of calm as an all-knowingness, or whatever the fuck. I really know it's sometimes helpful, I guess, to generalize, but like whatever. Okay, I went on a rant. I'm trying not to go on rants, but okay. So, as someone who has always seen and felt things and people that others around me have not seen or felt, I have always enjoyed exploring these layers of what it means to be materialized in this elemental atmospheric hologram. At some point, we have to shift our perspective to gain more depth. And yet, this does not mean we lose our footing or what we know or believe in. There is sort of room for it all. And funny at that timing, autocorrect room changed to Rome, which we'll touch on again at some point. Okay, so aside from making everything about things needing to be fixed or cured or picked apart and analyzed so much, we can see everything in everything or anything and how we loosen the framework and trust in our own true north. And a lot comes through that ends up being confirmed along the way in the most magical of timing without needing to know it all. I probably didn't need to go on that rant and just read that. I can trust in the process. Okay, let us explore visual snow a bit more, as we will again later, before continuing to focus in on iron. Visual, etymology of this word, pertaining to the faculty of sight, coming from the eye or sight as a beam of light was thought to, resulting from the eye, produced by a look, a sight, a looking, a power of sight, things seen, appearance, perceptible by sight, yada yada. And a little nod back to division, with these symbols here. Um, vision, that which is seen, specifically something seen in the imagination or in the supernatural by one sleeping or waking. Presence, sight, view, look, appearance, dream, supernatural sight. The act of sight, or the act of seeing, sight, things seen, a visual perception of something, act of seeing external objects. Snow, that which falls as snow, a fall of snow, a snowstorm. He gets wet. Isn't, if that isn't what they'd be trying to do all the time, jeez. Keep it in your pants. To fall as snow, snew. um, blue. I don't know how you say that. Also, pika, snow, bat snow. That makes me think of bat stew. Cause to snow. Okay, let's move on. A little more snow from Wikipedia. Snow consists of individual ice crystals that grow while suspended in the atmosphere, usually within clouds, and then fall, accumulating on the ground where they undergo further changes. It consists of frozen crystalline water throughout its life cycle, starting when, under suitable conditions, the icy crystals form in the atmosphere, increase to millimeter size, precipitate and accumulate on surfaces, and then metamorphose back into place, and usually melt, slide, or sublimate away. Sublimate, sublimate. Um, Sublimation is a Libra attributed alchemical process. It was I've been watching the show Fringe for the first time, and recently they've been talking about sublimation a lot. So let us also acknowledge under this Venusian lens, Taurus alchemy, congelation. Congelation, meaning freezing or congealing. And it was a term used in medieval and early modern alchemy for the process known today as crystallization. The physical properties of snow vary considerably from event to event, sample to sample, and over time. Snowstorms organize and develop by feeding on sources of atmospheric moisture and cold air. Snowflakes nucleate around particles in the atmosphere by attracting supercooled water droplets, which freeze in hexagonal shaped crystals. I was just looking up the molecular biology of honeycombs and structures because I can't stand when people just blame things on a hive mind. So I was really thinking about the honeycomb structure we see and how, when I was little, I was like, oh no, the bad aliens put a net around the earth. And I could easily find, let's say, Keylontics and go, yep, they did it and we're fucked and blah, blah, blah. And I'll get all these other things that reflect it. But sounds like a sounds like a looping story in some way. I don't know. So let me get back to this. Just reminded me because of hexagonal. Okay. Snowflakes take on a variety of shapes. Basic among these are platelets, needles, columns, and rime. As snow accumulates into a snowpack, it may blow into drifts. Over time, accumulated snow metamorphoses by stintering and sublimation and freeze thaw. Where the climate is cold enough for year-to-year accumulation, a glacier may form. Otherwise, snow typically melts seasonally, causing runoff into streams and rivers and recharging groundwater. Speaking of this fire horse year, because there's so much fire, considerably a lot of water to be depleted in some way. And so, interestingly enough, last year was the wood snake, and snake is also a fire sign. So, with the wood, it was like the stoking beginnings of this now fire to a degree. Last year, in some senses, was the hottest year recorded on record. And last winter, there wasn't a big snowstorm. This winter, really big snowstorm. Some people are like, it's climate change. Some people are like, it's fake. Either way, I had a great time shoveling. Oh my gosh, I was like very Taurus, I guess, about it because I was being pretty judgmental about other people not being smart about how they shoveled snow. And I guess there hasn't been a storm in a long time. I guess. And so just having to go somewhere and do certain things and do that, it was interesting where I wonder if with the heat of last year and the, predicted hot weather for this fiery year, if there's also going to be another snowstorm in this coming winter. Just given that, sort of polarity of hot and cold. In terms of like, because I'm not here to be like Earth's flat, Earth's round. Like I don't fucking actually know until I know, because I have a lot of ideas, but it's hard to put into words. But I'm saying, different places, different parts of the world, there's different seasons, etc. I'm someone who's always been like, winter's fake, boo. But that's part of this story, but for another time. So I guess I was just commenting because it's pretty sunny out today, but there's still snow everywhere except in my lawn. Okay, I won't be snooty. Where the climate is cold enough okay, I read that. Otherwise, snow typically melts seasonally, causing runoff into streams and rivers, recharging groundwater. I know my sister, I was watching her dogs, and the one dog was like, watch me eat this ice. And I was like, oh, she must like whatever's in there. And I believe snow is poor man's fertilizer, is what it's called. Okay, so the physical properties of snow vary considerably from event to event, sample to sample, and over time. So this is an image from Wikipedia. Um, okay, yeah. An early classification of snowflakes by Israel Perkins Warren. I feel like I paused there. I was like, oh, Israel. Now let's see what the events of late do. Okay, look at all those hexagonal shapes. Wow. That's so cool. When I was younger, I used to love to sit inside of a car if I could when it was snowing and watch the snowflakes melt. Because I could be like, oh, winter's fake. Look at all these hexagonal alien specks and be so mad. And I mean, in my childhood, I was very mad. And then, over time you go, well, like, it's not about just accepting it. It's about potentially being alive during a time of like a paradigm shift and transition where we can flip a script if we truly believe in something. And so I choose to enjoy the snow as I can rather than be so mad about being cold or whatever, because it really does change how I experience things. Oh, are those two different ones? Yeah, they were. Okay, so I'll pause on this for a little bit too. Pretty cool, pretty cool. That molecular biology, that, crystal family, that sublimation, um, what was the other one? Congelation energy. And funny enough, those are, like I said, the Libra and Taurus, so like the Venus, and these are very pretty. These are very pretty. Okay, so if you recall, before I went over the ermine shapes, and I've just thought about bringing them back up here. Um, if you did want to call them alien specks. Oh, look at these Satan specks from the elites who manipulated the sphere at a 23-degree angle, and now it's cold. Okay, so visual snow syndrome, VSS, is a common neurological condition in which the primary symptom is that affected individuals see persistent, flickering, black, transparent, or colored dots across the whole visual field. Other common symptoms are palinopsia. I capitalized the PSI, the psi. Enhanced and entoptic phenomena, photophobia, and tension headaches. The condition is typically always present and has no known cure, as viable treatments are still under research. Astigmatism, although not presumed, I don't know why I'm well, I know I'm holding my eyeball because we're talking about eye stuff, but like, stop that. Astigmatism, although not presumed connected to these visual disturbances, is a common comorbidity. Migraines and tinnitus are common comorbidities that are both associated with a more severe presentation of the syndrome. Oh, I forgot I changed the font so the my little smiley faces. Um, there, that will do. Okay, the cause of the syndrome is unclear. The underlying mechanism is believed to involve excessive excitability of the neurons in the right lingual gyrus and left anterior lobe of the cerebellum. Another hypothesis proposes that visual snow syndrome could be a type of thalamocortical dysrhythmia and may involve the thalamic reticular nucleus, TRN. A failure of inhibitory action from the TRN to the thalamus may be the underlying cause for the inability to suppress excitatory sensory information. Research has been limited due to issues of case identification, diagnosis, and the limited size of any studied cohort, though the issue of diagnosis is now largely addressed. Initial functional brain imaging research suggests visual snow is a brain disorder. Is it, motherfuckers? Is it? Because, like, I can't stand. Like, okay, I feel like there's a difference between science and experimenting on things in a certain way. In my perception, the idea that we can shift something isn't about something taking on a human quality and being like, oh, you can't measure me now because I know you're watching me. No, it's that we have placebo and nocebo. And when we frame something with the literal fabric of reality, it's not all about controlling it, but let's say experiments are controlled. There's a control. There's a control and there's a framework that which the statistical analysis falls into place depending on that size. And methinks those days are over. And yes, there's a great panic with all the things as of late with like Epstein stuff and satanic panic where like oh, there's a lot of layers there. Where I'm like, yeah, things are demonic, I guess, but also those are just awful people connected to things where like I think we can end certain stories this way, and some of it has been egregor to keep us looping and make us addicted to certain stories that it's like some of it I feel like is very truthful, some of it is literally designed in the very way that people are speaking on mind control and things like that, and it's quite alarming and also illuminating. But what I'm proposing here and just commenting on is that what if we've been lied to about a lot of things? And it's not about one group of people here knowing the solid absolute story, because I personally don't think there's just one thing going on here. And maybe I'm wrong and we'll all find out soon. I don't know. But if I were to play around with this belief, I would say that maybe some people it's not a brain disorder. They're seeing the actual iron specks in the sky, and then also that maybe you could see the fabric of reality. Maybe it becomes a disorder or an issue when someone doesn't believe in themselves or they believe the narrative or script at play that sort of lessens the role of human here in a certain way. But I digress. Visual snow is a phenomenon where a person perceives visual disturbances such as fine graininess or static in the air in their fields of vision. This can occur in low light conditions, in the dark, or when the visual system amplifies light perception. In these cases, visual snow is a normal reaction of the body related to the way photoreceptors, rods, and neurons respond to the weak or insufficient stimuli. However, if visual snow becomes persistent and continuous, especially if it is accompanied by other symptoms, this is from Wikipedia, I'm pretty sure. If it's not, it's from a site that I don't remember. Um, the syndrome, oh wait, hold on. If it accompanies headaches, difficulty focusing, or intense visual distortions, it may indicate visual snow syndrome. I think it might be from Wikipedia. This syndrome is not just a phenomenon, but a neurological disorder where a person experiences constant visual disturbances regardless of lighting conditions. Visual snow syndrome is often linked to heightened neural sensitivity in the visual system and may require diagnosis and treatment as it could be associated with underlying eye conditions or neurological disorders. So, I'm not saying, especially if you're someone who if, he suffers from that, like it's just because you're seeing the iron. However, like I know how it felt when I was seeing like seven doctors and being studied all the time and on like scan schedules because I was getting so many MRIs and CT scans and stuff, and I thought there was something wrong with me. And this is why I don't subscribe to a lot of people's storylines about what's going on because a lot of it comes down to something being wrong that we have to fix or we have to enlighten people to. And that blank depends on blank. And I just can't fucking live like that. I feel like when I was in my elementary school years, I was so hot on waking people up and I really thought there was like a way to do things, but like I don't think sure people can attribute people to sharing information and it illuminates them. And yet, if it's not the signature of yours, you can easily, because of how powerful we are, build on something. But it doesn't mean that the morphogenetic structure is aligned with you. So like be clever and witty and discerning. In summary, visual snow as a temporary occurrence under certain conditions is normal, but if it's a pathological where the disturbances persist constantly, it may be caused by issues in the visual or nervous system requiring medical attention. So I'm not saying that can't happen. I have issues where I'm scared, but and so I mean, I just should like I'm like trying to change the way I talk about certain things. But I can also admit I'm scared because I can choose for myself and say, well, it's actually this. It doesn't mean that's what's going on. And there are some health issues I've experienced that I've been like, this is fucking so scary to be experiencing. Like that, and by scary I mean like feeling a loss of control to me feels scary. So other people might not have that, but there's something to the way my nervous system has been wired since I was one and like uh, uh having a certain lens, I'm not justifying it. It's just still something I deal with, if you will. So, um I I can justify and explain logically what I think is going on, but then I can look something up online and be scared about what I see based on symptoms I've experienced. But I do think that it is like part of what we're here to not necessarily get rid of completely, like the allopathic Western medicine model, but transform because that's like, oh, I don't want to do that. I just want to burn down. And I get it. But I think sometimes it's not the systems, it's not the substances or the ingredients, it's unfortunately and I. because clearly I'm talking about bad aliens in this series, but I'm saying it's human nature. It is so hard for us to see ourselves in a certain way. And I don't think we're meant to see ourselves wholly, fully in certain ways. And so you can imagine on amplified scales of people who do want to do nefarious things and don't feel sorry about them, that like you can attribute certain things, yes, to certain networks of people doing things, but also it's interesting the sometimes the nature of certain people sharing information. Sometimes they're big fat assholes. They're assholes calling everyone retards, being racist, being homophobic, and they're like, I know the truth and the way. And like, I guess teach their own. Like I could be like, fuck that. But I'm like, you know what? They could go do that. But I'm just saying, uh you get what I'm saying, I think. And if you don't, whatever, because this note is in my face. I'll touch on this more in a different way. But mind you, when I'm using certain labels here, the contention within and around them may bring up certain energies. I'm not speaking from a place of disease, but trying my best to use certain words without getting so galactic with it, if you will. What's visual snow syndrome and why do so many autistic people have it? So that's the name of the article that when I was like reading this and I was like, I think it's from Wikipedia. That's from Wikipedia. This is from the article of that title. So I learned this the other day when I posted about the palinopsia, the visual trailing or after images is what that is. And I'll have slides with all the examples of them in a bit. But this is common in autistic people. And I know my my whole life, like when I was little, I would just be like, what? People just have always been like, are you high? And it's like, I could be, but when I was little, no, and I was just high on life. But not that I'm diagnosed autistic, but let's just read this. Okay. It's common in autistic people per the experiences of autistic people on this website. That's what it is a blog or some type of website where the users are the ones giving the information and it's from their own experience. So I'm not just saying that. A couple of our followers told, oh, okay. That's from the article. I didn't write that. Um, a couple of our followers, so whatever that website is, that article is from, told me about their VSS. I did more research and discovered that I also have it. It's a neurological condition that interferes with visual processing, caused by hyperactivity and hyperexcitability of nerves in certain areas of the brain that process visual information. If you notice, like I said, sometimes I speak really fast. I do process really quickly, and part of the reason I say that, like, I'm not diagnosed autistic, but I resonate is because I process my reality at an extreme rate that, like, I don't know what it is about my nature that people could, I guess, like, never guess unless I told them what I'm experiencing. I think I come off very calm in certain ways. But it's kind of because like I'm very wrapped up in or inundated with this processing of the fabric of reality. And I know a lot about people without needing to ask them because that is what I am connected to. It's like this underlying subconscious layer where um I I think a lot of us have felt like too much in certain ways and we learn to kind of shove certain things down or maybe we're just used to them. So I just wanted to make a note there about the hyperexcitability and processing power, but we're speaking about the visual information here. I have that thing where my eyes move really fast back and forth and I might even do it while I'm talking on here, especially since I hit my head, but I digress once more. And again. The core feature of VSS is constantly seeing tiny, fuzzy feedback in the environment. It's kind of like seeing the world through a staticky TV screen. Some people's visual static is larger than others. This person's is relatively fine grained, but gets bigger and more obvious in low lighting. I've always had this, and I feel like it is different in basements. So I guess in low lighting might be it, something I haven't like studied and paid attention to. But I could say I can tell when I've been looking at screens more, and that's somewhat of a amplification of the feedback from that timing, because time's not just linear. So there's something there too. But it's more than this because again, I'm talking about like a lived experience, not just a list of symptoms and descriptions with words. Some of the other symptoms are the palinopsia, visual trailing or after images, photophobia, sensitivity to light, increased and enhanced ectopic phenomenon such as floaters, phosphenes, and shearers phenomenon, seeing glare, starbursts, and halos around lights, difficulty seeing at night or in the dark, seeing random flashes of light or color without cause from the environment. So, like I'm suggesting, with the increase of screen usage since the 90s, you could say potentially that some of these things, if it's pathological, that it's from that, and that it's not necessarily about damage, but just consistent use of something that is a flat screen projecting much more than that through a like 64-bit system to a degree. So that like there could be something there too, but I don't like to dismiss also that which I have believed from at least what I can remember from like age one. And not that I have to just stick everything to my 1-year-old ideologies, but there's something to honoring that little me and knowing that there is like, truth stranger than fiction. So it's common for people with VSS to experience comorbid migraines, but VSS is not the same thing as migraine aura. So I don't know why you call that. So why do autistic people often have VSS? It comes down to the fact that VSS is caused by the excitability of neurons in areas of the brain that process visual information. One thing that's interesting with this is that it takes me next to nothing with like shrooms, mushrooms, psilocybin. I can get visuals so easily. I could take like a tiny baby microdose and I'll be like, whoa. Like, so when I used to take a lot, I would be like, I don't know where I am at all. I am not here. And whoa, I don't do that anymore because it's kind of scary sometimes, like, especially being with people and being like, they are just not in the same place I'm experiencing things. So I feel like, yeah, everyone can have an experience on mushrooms, but those of us that might be like autistic in some way, it's like I am. And maybe everyone's a little autistic. I don't know. I don't know, but I'm talking about like, full on having just different experiences than most around you. Um, okay, so a core feature of autism is hyperexcitable neurons, especially in the areas of the brain that have to do with sensory processing. So it makes sense that autism would often inadvertently cause VSS. So these are some illustrations of that. So if you want to get a better idea, um, and maybe you experienced this, but you didn't know you did. And again, consider emotion, time of day, lighting, all sorts of stuff. Consider your aura. Maybe maybe it's like how like white noise-ish and noise could be like kind of soothing, maybe different brown noise, green noise, pink noise. And maybe that's like your aura's way of like filtering things. It's like, I cannot be bothered with all that. I don't know. I just like to consider, not that it has to be changed, but that like if autistic people experience this often, then there's something to like for me, I can hear like everything around me. And like my sister the other day, she has this awful device for her dogs if they're barking to press it, and she doesn't even need to press it. She just will like threaten them with it. And my other sister turned it on the other day, and I was like, ah. And so it's not that like, oh, it's so crazy that you can hear that, but like it's so funny in my life to be next to people and then be like, what are you talking about? And me be like, you can't hear every single thing that's plugged in. And again, if we're looking at that from an allopathic, pathological standpoint, that's like a disability and it's because the nervous system is but like I feel like that system is what makes me nervous to be here. This makes sense to me more than the pathological. But that's my own, I'm doing my own ramblings here about stuff. Okay, so the palinopsia, and you don't have to capitalize the PSI. I guess I kept it that way for all of the things. That's the image trailing. So this image here says, if my hand held in front of me is in the shadows and there's a light cast on the wall behind it. So, well, for me, I just move my hand around and I see like, sorry. I just clearly have fun. Stationary while moving this way, coming to a stop. The shadow image quickly merges with real image and then disappears. No change in this one when eye is shut. Tried on both eyes. For me, I can also sometimes see the color of my auric field when I do that. And choose to look at like certain parts of my hand more focused. I can see like a bluish, purplish tinge. Um, sure, she shearers, shearers phenomenon, tiny bright moving dots. Can you see that? I don't know how I think I zoomed in on it well. Sometimes I think I'm zoomed in on my end it shows, but other people are like, what? But I don't know. I have this is like the iron specks. Like that's not dots, that's iron, like from the Salt of Salvation thingy before. Okay, starbursts around lights, floaters. So on the left, that the floaters. I have floaters for the first time starting almost 2 years ago. I can't shut up about them sometimes because one, I two of them told me their name. One's Hubert, um, and when I because you know I was getting so mad about them, and now I'll be like, "Oh, Hubert, hi." For some reason, the other floater's name left my mind about as soon as I was going to say it, so she does not want to be known by you. Hubert, he's a star. He's a cool shape. Okay. Starburst around lights. That's what I feel like I have the astigmatism energy. It's this. At night, I'll be like, oh my God. It's like pretty, but then when I'm driving, I'm like, ah, ah. So don't drive with me at night. Timeline. In May 2015, visual snow was described as a persisting positive visual phenomenon distinct from migraine aura. In December 2020, a study found local increases in regional cerebral perfusion in patients with visual snow syndrome. In 2021, September, two studies found white matter alterations in parts of the visual cortex and outside the visual cortex in patients with visual snow syndrome. And in November 2023, a study revealed that glutamate and serotonin are involved in brain connectivity alterations in areas of the visual salience and limbic systems in VSS. Importantly, altered serotonergic connectivity is independent of migraine in VSS and simultaneously comparable to that of migraine with aura, highlighting a shared biology between the disorders. So at first they're like, it's distinct, this part, and then they look at another part and they're like, actually, it's not. So I said, okay, partially because interestingly, these studies are just from the past 11 years, and you could say what has been highlighted more in the past 11 years, especially, well, a pedophile ring, many of them. No, it's not about that, but I'm saying like the fabric of reality is showing itself more. These things have been experienced before, but there is something to the timing of the internet being available, not just for nefarious purposes or bad things, but for some form of connectivity where we can end cycles that we have been waiting to end for lifetimes. Common misconceptions. Perceiving visual static, flickering, or graininess and monochrome colors in the sky or in darkness can be a normal phenomenon associated with neural noise amplified in the absence of bright visual stimuli. This effect is known as the ganzfield effect. In conditions of low illumination, especially in dimly lit environments, this phenomenon is related to how the eyes and the brain process visual information in insufficient lighting. The visual system becomes more sensitive to light and can amplify noise or minor changes in visual signals. For example, to the work of different types of photoreceptors in the retina of the eye. I feel like that sounded weird. For example, in the dark, the rod photo in the dark, the rod photoreceptors, which are responsible for the perception of light in low light, are mainly activated, but they are not able to distinguish details or colors. This is why in dim light we often see the world blurred and grainy, without clear contours. While cones, which are responsible for color perception and detail, are activated in brighter light, the rods provide vision in low light but with a loss of precision. Therefore, the graininess we perceive in the dark is a natural adaptation of our vision to photoreceptor limitations, not a sign of some abnormality. It's important to note that the perception of such phenomenon may vary among different individuals due to individual differences in perception and sensitivity. Given that our auditory system is formed before every other system in our body to a degree by the time we're born, like it's not fully formed, but it's been way more active than our eyes have been. There's something there to the signals that our ears and our auditory field and the higher sensory fields of perception can cue for our visual sight. And also there's something to belief, and that, let's say, what's more fun sometimes to people, believing that everything's going to be okay, or there's some big fucking scary drama that we're about to face. It's that one, and then people will go like it's like a trap. It's magnetic. It's and so there's something to that, changing a course of something in a certain way where people are experiencing different realities altogether right next to each other. And it's not even about who is being blamed, but the act of that energy being transformed in the same holographic sense and way. Some things maybe are cycles that will never end here in terms of whatever life is. And yet some things I do think are cycles we came here to fucking end. Came to fuck shit up in the best way possible. When the eyes are closed, visual static may be related to the first level of visual hallucination. Eye pathologies or other neurological conditions can also be a cause of visual anomalies, including the appearance of visual static or other changes in perception. Additionally, psychological disorders such as somatic disorders could potentially contribute to these perceptual disturbances. So, something I think it's important to note is that the somatic nervous system is a part of the peripheral nervous system. Of course, every system in our body is connected. The central would be the brain and spinal cord, and then the peripheral would be the nerve ganglia and things that come out of peripherally out of the brain and spine. And so within the peripheral nervous system, you not only have the somatic nervous system, you have the enteric nervous system, which is often referred to as the second gut, and then you also have the autonomic nervous system, which, depending on which one of those theories you follow, there's many ways to look at that. So I'm just saying that within the autonomic sense, there would be a lot of ways for the window of subconscious messaging to gain traction towards a somatic disorder in a way that might be really hard to pinpoint, because it's not all about something bad or scary happening to us. And that, I think, is something that is important to focus on. What I mean by that is that we are scanning our environments, whether we like it or not, in some way or another, subconsciously. So you don't have to call it neuroception. You don't have to follow the polyvagal model. However, you could say there's a part of us that is aware of a lot of things going on. And maybe when we were younger, we smelled something we didn't like, and that was enough for us to have like some sort of, our nervous system recorded. Ugh. But maybe something else was also going on at that time, like a song was playing, or there was a TV show on, or there was something being talked about, or maybe someone jumped out, like your brother was like, boo, and you were like, ah, and like that. Like that was a part of your own morphogenetic field in some way, where Let's say, such like with memories, it's not about clearing and deleting them, but learning how to adapt and transform in ways that we can better understand without needing to know every single fucking thing. Or again, what I just said, needing to go, well, we're just going to delete that, which you can do that. That's fine. I just don't think that's a form of control I want to be a part of in a certain way. It doesn't really interest me. And it also feels a little bit of like not bypassing, not at all, because I really feel like to each their own. But for me, because I feel a little bit plagued with that neuron thing that's mentioned here with autism, I feel like I can remember a lot about my life. It's like a lot to feel and process at times, along with feeling other people's stuff too. And not just like their emotions, like I feel their history, I feel their bloodlines and their ancestry and their memories and their feelings and their thoughts and their futures and their pasts and their other lifetimes or whatever. And I don't always need to hold it. It's not about my capacity in that regard. It's just something I experience, and sometimes that's overwhelming, sometimes it's not. Um, but I'm just saying that now I'm like forgetting what I was about to say. Um, that um um that um yeah, now I forget. I feel like I'm gonna go into a little space out moment there, trying to remember what I was saying. Like I almost feel kind of high right now. I did just get over a cold. I felt very sick. So, oh wait, no, I ate an edible. It must be kicking in. I forgot about that. I was like, I feel kind of spacey. I feel kind of loopy. Maybe I'm still feeling a little sick. Okay. Um, so something I was saying is that I feel overwhelmed with that like it's like an ability I don't have, whatever, like pruning neurons or whatever. And so the way that I'm experiencing my reality is sometimes, okay, here's an example actually, because I recently was talking to my mom about it. So actually beyond my 1 year old experience, but when I was in my mom's belly, I had like a memory, you could say, from the future where I was like, oh shit, that's the life. This is the life we do the stuff. This is the life we do the stuff. And we end the cycles, which can be like, yeah, this is the life we do the stuff and end the cycles. But what I felt in the womb was, I don't want to do that. And I was very focused on the year 2020 even then, and I had no idea what that meant. No fucking idea what time was in that regard. So it was very like, what the fuck does this mean? I don't want to go out. I don't want to go. I don't want to be here. And so I got really comfy in my mom's belly. Like I remember getting like snuggly, and it's funny because I still do it when I turn on this side. I really like curl into myself on the side where my with my heart. And unless you're from the timeline where the heart's in the middle. Uh, but when if your mom and you were in your mom's belly and you were at the hospital for anything, or she had a doctor, and they were observing her, there would be times when they would check your heart and other things while you were in your mom's belly. And I hated that I could hear everybody. I was so fucking annoyed because you can feel everybody too when you're a baby. And if you can recall being in your mom's belly, you also can have a vision of being above her. Like there's so many things I experienced where I thought I was like so tall, but it was more like my energy was above her body because I was still, I don't know, I was gonna say I was still cooking in there. And so it wasn't ready to be grounded in, and it wasn't until maybe I got closer, like after like the 6 month mark or something, where I was like, okay, I'll go in there. Nice and warm in the belly, but I didn't like them touching my mom's belly. I didn't like them talking about me. And I was so comfy, snuggly in there, didn't want to leave. I was dead set on staying in there. They couldn't hear my heartbeat. And so what they'll do sometimes, if your mom, like I said, saw doctors that did this or whatever, there's like a sound machine, like or like vibrations they'll play. And I've been mad since then. That was so annoying. I hated that. I can't stand when anyone tries to wake me up. I can hear like everything anyway. So it's like what I'm saying is that wasn't just a random story. Like, so hard for me to talk to people who sometimes want things to be so deep and about all the emotional things or like some life you lived as a priestess when it's like literally I got woken up by a dumb buzz bar and I didn't want to be here. And that my nervous system recorded that. And that's that. Sometimes I'm great. Other times, like you could probably maybe if you feel stuff, you could feel it. When I was like, and then they fucking woke me up, and I'm still mad at like I can definitely channel that my body is still like, fuck you. I'll come. I'll. You don't need to scan my heart all the time. Get out of here. I'll be out when I'm ready. And so I'm saying some of the things are just that, where it's like annoying to remember so much, but also some of the things are like this, I could say, oh, let me just clear all my memories before a certain age so life makes more sense or fits in this box and is easier. And again, for some people, they had awful things happen to them. For me, this was very traumatic, but it was more so a measure of like, feeling like I was always on acid or something, like living in a totally different reality than everyone around me, like going fucking mad. But that I didn't get like abused. I mean, I got hit, definitely had a hellish kind of childhood at times, but I didn't get like sexually abused. And I think that is something that people definitely would want to not have active. And so all of that to say that I think there's something to, yes, we're all different, we're all individual. The things that are auric fields and bioenergetic fields and morphogenetic fields may be very connected to us in ways that are unconscious or subconscious, but like you could say to protect us, like maybe that has to do with some of this, where like there's a lot of fucked up stuff in this world. And it's not all about like it being about this story that maybe for me, I have my own story and I've talked about it here or there. I need to finish or continue my story time with Tree series to talk about more of that there. But like I don't need anyone to agree with me on my story, but I definitely know at this point, especially from 2017 onward, I can kind of pinpoint people I came into contact with, books I saw, because I don't like to read. I would say books I read. It's books I glanced at. Ideologies I became introduced to, confident people I followed, and that is where I was imprinted with a certain overlay, where then I'm working or operating from that standpoint, and that could be the very wiring or programming that then choo choo ricochets, and then I'm like, oh, I got tummy aches and weird body pains, and it isn't necessarily about the seed oils or whatever, like been there, done that. Um, Clearly my my mom was like, so you named your floaters? I was like, no, they told me their names. So clearly that's who I am. And I hope that even though I am insecure in some ways, I lack confidence in certain ways for sure. I hope you do feel my confidence within that storyline of this is who I am, baby. And it is so much better for me when I can stop trying to obsess over the me to the we and how I need to be in community and I don't want to make it so individualistic or I need to do no, like truly some of us here are fucking freaks. And I'm saying this in the best way, but like you're maybe not here to do what other people are here to do, and it will make you fucking sick to do that. Um, why is my dad asking me? My dad just texted me, said, "Are you home upstairs?" When the eyes are okay, did I read all of that? I did. So I was talking about the autonomic nervous system, and then I went off on a whole thing. So these are more. I don't know where the list is, but we already went through the names of these, but these are just more examples of these energies here. So I wanted to share them. These look like sprinkles. This is a drawing from a younger person, I believe, and at the top here they said small circles. I see these on sunny days, so just this small grouping of circles in like a hexagonal shape. After image of house, so that trail kind of energy. I've had that my whole life where like every time I close my eyes, it's like a blueprint. And I've asked people like, like not a blueprint, a negative like of a photograph, where it's like not just the after image, but it's like just a certain way of processing that. Again, you could say there's something wrong. Oh no, but like right now we're at this peak of where like autism is being talked about in a certain way, and the reason I'm choosing to talk about it in this way is not because it's the only way, but because there's no coincidence why certain things are going to be pathologized, especially during a time of where there's fears of AI, et cetera, and all these things going on that you could say, what's the point of being here? It sucks. Um, or like, why don't I see things like other people? Why are these things in my field? Or I have to put stuff on my eyes or take these supplements to heal my eyes. Maybe, maybe for some of us it's just finding people who get this, where like why do a lot of the people who experience this stuff also want to talk about the weirdest fucking things ever? And not in the more conventional conspiracy theorist way. And what I mean is we're not going straight to Satanism and demons. We can talk about certain things, and mind you, me likey say bad aliens and blame bad aliens for things. It's like a fun thing I do. However, I think a lot of things are holographically mirrored, where it's not about everything being a mirror, but that there's just a different way to approach things. So, sort of anyone who has the patience to be able to look at things and then hear from other people and be like, ah, and not want to necessarily convince someone of like, this is the way you need to see it and do it because that's how I see it. But it is fun when you do see things in a certain way. Maybe you use certain words differently or blah blah blah, but there's something to like if you see this and you can and you relate in any way, like there's a resonance, there's a layer, a field, a shield of people having this experience where again, depending on the filter, you could say allopathic, um it is one example. It's autoimmune disease or it's ascension symptoms. We don't need to call it either, but I'm saying it's a funny way of mind fucking ourselves, but also like what do you believe? If it makes you feel better to go along with something, it's something you can fix and then da da da, that's fine. But maybe it's not about something being there or not, and it's a certain state of being that we're tapping into. And I find in a linear progression, the farther along that we go, at times we can fall into an unspoken social taboo system where we are acting in a way, we're policing each other in society on ways to act or not, things to say or not. And often this is why I don't venture towards people who apologize for being woo woo, because like that's for one, not my people in a certain way. And I'm not saying that person's bad or wrong, but like I have no choice but to experience reality like this. So, like, anyone trying to turn that down to make more sense in a certain way, that's a script that I'm not willing to follow. And I know it's very much so worth it to take the time and space to even, like I said, maybe four people watch this. I don't know. And yeah, I mean, I already know people watching this are the same people who took the grain of salt journey class, which is hilarious. So shout out my peeps. But like it is what it is, but there's something to like the feeling of me expressing these things alone, like being able to deliver these slides and this series. Like it's super fun because it's way more close to something that feels resonant to who I am than these boxes of even me like being so depressed about the floaters and then one day like having this experience outside and feeling like they two of them introduced themselves to me and they were like offended by me, and then I was like, well, maybe they were always there and I just didn't notice them until before. Mind you, I did hit my head quite a few times. So again, I'm saying we can go with certain things. I hit my head a few times, and sometimes people's response or reaction from hitting their head is getting floaters or whatever. Like, okay. But like I said, me likey, blamey bad aliens on things. And so I'm like, maybe when I say bad aliens, it's not what other people perceive. Like we're not perceiving like I like to say we are using the same words but speaking two very different languages. And so like to me, it's like I am the bad aliens too, though. I can't just be like, oh, it's bad aliens, but like there's a thing called awareness and responsibility. And it's not to say anyone can tell us what our awareness is or responsibility is, but it's up to us, like if we just want to keep looping in certain things or be like, wait, I see this way because I am this way, and I see things other people don't. But maybe it's not about them being normies or muggles. It like really is a state of being that will maybe take some ripples of time to be woken back up. It might not also be, again, based on the ways we're influenced by each other's and certain ideologies and blah blah blah. It might not be the way people said it would look or whatever, but like I feel that what I just said about like I haven't had a choice but to be a weirdo fucking freak the whole time I've been here. I went most of my life, even though I wouldn't shut up about certain things, like I especially once I started drinking and as a teen and hanging out and like waiting till everyone was a little drunk or high and being like, so do you believe in aliens? And then like, entertaining people and they wouldn't fucking remember it. But I would talk to people and they would talk to me more about stuff once they, you could say, lost their inhibitions a little more based on this. I'm doing this, but I mean like cookie cutter, like a script, something that fits into something and makes sense. And you can go, oh, my nervous system likes that because the other things, what I'm highlighting here is when we keep making everything demonic and like an entity and cannot acknowledge the egregor and that takes like a certain party system for it to grow and expand and be active, that there leaves something lingering in the subconscious and unconscious, like there's always something out to get us. And I really feel if we don't choose to acknowledge and be in different states of being where we can again like see the seen and the unseen and be willing to feel and not know and exist in these parts of ourselves that are unconscious, subconscious, conscious, and not need a part of us to fit like, oh, I should have done this by this age or whatever it is. Like there's a certain convention that is like spoiled, rotten, stinky stuff that's not bad or be thrown away. It's going to get moldy and it's going to grow into something else if you let it be and have its own journey. We're not here to control everybody. So again, yet another, I guess I keep calling it a rant, but like there's just something to the energy today, me wanting to share these things. Not that it doesn't happen, but I've gone on quite a few rants today. And then I always am like, oh wow, I got through 20 slides and I could have just read them slide to slide instead of stopping and having rants, but I like it when I have rants. So this says sparks and dots. Wait, spark and dot. I don't know. I thought it said dotto on the sky or any plane surface. Below that, it says squiggles and lines. I can see these everywhere. And then over here, it says blobs one. Oh, blobs are white on dark surfaces and colored on light shapes. I can see these everywhere. So it's kind of like what I was saying about like the after image and then like blinking and seeing things like, and I just know when I was younger it was one way, and then like drinking for the first time and being like, whoa, like part of me wishes I never partake in certain things, but I did what I did. And I definitely was having a way different experience than those around me. And I'm not saying that to be like I'm so special. It was kind of like torturous hell at times. All right, so this is some pics of it says salience network, the this green energy here and back here. Default mode network, these pink places. Dorsal visual network, this blue one. Um, I don't remember what that is, but it's there. So, shall we go for a little bit longer? Okay. The Ganzfeld effect from German for complete field or perceptual deprivation is a phenomenon of perception caused by exposure to an unstructured, uniform stimulation field. The effect is the result of the brain amplifying neural noise in order to look for the missing visual signals. The noise is interpreted in the higher visual cortex and gives rise to hallucinations. It has been most studied with vision by staring at an undifferentiated and uniform field of color. The visual effect is described as the loss of vision as the brain cuts off the unchanging signal from the eyes. The result is seeing black, says better source, citation needed. You can look it up if you want. An apparent sense of blindness. A flickering ganzfield causes geometrical patterns and colors to appear, maybe even like when you press your hands into your eyes. Um, and this is the working principle for mind machines and the dream machine. Ganzfeld induction in multiple senses is called multimodal Ganzfeld. Um, this is usually done by wearing Ganzfeld goggles in addition to headphones with a uniform stimulus. A related effect is sensory deprivation, although in this case, the stimulus is minimized rather than unstructured. Hallucinations that appear under prolonged sensory deprivation are similar to elementary percepts caused by luminous Ganzfeld and include transient sensations of light flashes or colors. Hallucinations caused by sensory deprivation can, like Ganzfeld induced hallucinations, turn into complex scenes. Like I said, when I have taken mushrooms, I just remember being around people and they've been like, "Oh, you're having visuals with that amount," and I'm like, oh yeah, man, I'm seeing things easily. Even with a little bit of weed, I can see things in ways that I'll be like, "Oh my," sometimes it freaks me out a little bit. But again, for me, it's because my nervous system has been a little bit overwhelmed from such a young age and like seeing things. I guess you could say I'm like either I saw things other people didn't see or they were hallucinations. Like I don't know what people would want to categorize my experiences as, but um I've wanted to do like sensory deprivation tank, and I know people do that for like relaxation, but I know just me covering my eyes over here sometimes I'd be like, so I realize though with my voice, I keep saying I'm scared of stuff, so I gotta be mindful of that. Not of just my words, but the fact that I'm like, I'm scared. Oh no. I'm like, okay, that means I gotta do it. And then in my head, I was like, that means I gotta go skydiving. No, it does not mean I need to go skydiving. Like, I guess anything to avoid being with myself in the dark or something. Okay. In the 1930s, research by psychologist Wolfgang Metzger, considered one of the main representatives of Gestalt psychology, established that when subjects gazed into a featureless field of vision, they consistently hallucinated their electroencephalograms changed. Oh, and there. The Ganzfeld effect has been reported since ancient times. The adepts of Pythagoras retreated to pitch black caves to receive wisdom through their visions. I could get in the dark more here, though. I used to do that all the time, even like with a weighted blanket and whatever. I'll probably do that after this. Miners trapped by, it's known as prisoners' cinema. Well, I'm not gonna go to prisoners' cinema, okay? Well, okay. I was about to be like, well, I'll put myself in there and then I'll take myself out. But I don't need to call it that. See, I'm a scaredy cat, I guess. Miners trapped. I have a little bit of a cough, ow, from my cold. The cold was awesome. Being sick, I was like, baby, are you okay, Tracy? I was just so nice to myself during it. And I felt like it wasn't just like a cold. It was like an alchemical transformation where I needed to feel like absolute shit in order to really be grateful for what's to come. Okay. Miners trapped by accidents in mines frequently reported hallucinations, visions, and seeing ghosts when they were in the pitch dark for days. What? Okay, I won't go on a rant. I'm just saying I don't like the way things are phrased sometimes. Because have you ever had a coworker that everybody else was like, "Who that person doesn't work here," and you're like, "The person I worked with." What? It's like, was that a ghost or was that an interdimensional being? Okay, Arctic explorers seeing nothing but featureless, or do we live in parallel realities that intertwine and overlap in certain ways? Read that too. Arctic explorers seeing nothing but featureless landscape of white snow for a long time also reported hallucinations and an altered state of mind. Cool. See also Ganzfeld experiment, pseudoscience, visual release hallucinations, closed eye hallucination, dark retreat, hypnagogia, isolation tank. That's the one I wanted to do. Isolation tank, or no, sensory deprivation. I don't, whatever. See, I've been watching Fringe, so it's hard for me to tell what's my reality or the show, I guess. Nucleus basalis, sensory deprivation, third man factor, James Turrell. These are just things to look up if you wanted to. Gestalt psychology, Gestaltism, or configurationism is a school of psychology and a theory of perception that emphasizes the processing of entire patterns and configurations, and not merely individual components. Wait, I don't know. Sometimes I read things and then I just do that tone thingy. I'm like, why do I do that? And not merely individual components. It emerged in the early 20th century in Austria and Germany. Hey, Bob, as a rejection of basic principles of Wilhelm Wundt and Edward Titchener, the and elementalist and structuralist psychology. Gestalt psychology is often associated with the adage, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. In Gestalt theory, information is perceived as wholes rather than disparate parts, which are then processed summatively. As meaning, form is interpreted as pattern or configuration. It differs from Gestalt therapy, which is only peripherally linked to Gestalt psychology. Is it Gestalt? Gestalt? Hmm. Etymology, quality of perceiving a complex organization of things or events as an organized whole and also as more than the sum of the parts. From 1922. Blah, blah, blah. Shape, form, figure. Sounds like egregore. You could look at it in different ways, though. There's some article I looked at before that was egregor, gestalt, or zeitgeist, and it was fun to look at. Maybe I'll bring it up at some point. Prisoner's cinema is the phenomenon. I think I need to blow my nose. Mhm, mhm. Sorry. Prisoner's cinema is the phenomenon of a light show of various colors that appear out of darkness. The light has a form, but those that have seen it find it difficult to describe. Sometimes the cinema lights resolve into human or other figures. The phenomenon is reported by prisoners confined to dark cells and by others kept in darkness. There is something I'll share, I think. I don't think I shared it already, but about the monks who stay in the dark for 2 weeks and who studied them and what happened with their brain chemistry, etc. So voluntarily or not for long periods of time. It has also been reported by truck drivers, pilots, and practitioners of intense meditation. Astronauts and other individuals who've been exposed to certain types of radiation have reported witnessing similar phenomena. Scientists believe that the cinema is a result of the phosphenes combined with the psychological effects of prolonged lack of exposure to light, and others have noted a connection between the form the lights take and Neolithic cave paintings. We will come back to some of this stuff later when we get more into vision, but it is quite fun to dance around like the flickering lights. Because without planning it all out, I just took notes for a couple weeks and I'm sharing them in order of how I wrote them, and somehow it sort of all comes together as if it has a life of its own. But one last share before dipping back into iron. So I guess this is where I'll wrap it up, even though it's like how many more slides. So I'm like, oh, this is where I'll wrap it up. It's like not till there. Okay. Closed eye hallucinations and closed eye visualizations, CEV, are hallucinations that occur when one's eyes are closed or when one is in a darkened room. They should not be confused with phosphenes, perceived light and shapes when pressure is applied to the eye's retina or some other non-visual external causes stimulate the eye. Some people report CEV under the influence of psychedelics. These are reportedly of a different nature than the open eye hallucinations of the same compounds. Similar hallucinations that occur due to loss of vision are called visual release hallucinations. There are 5 known levels of CEV perception, which can be perceived either through chemical stimulation or through meditative relaxation techniques. Level 1 and 2 are very common and often happen every day. It is still normal to experience level 3 and even level 4. However, only a small percentage of the population does this without psychedelic drugs, meditations, or extensive something. Cut off. I will say, one time, look, this is part of my story. In college, my friend and we liked some drugs. I didn't like Coke, and all my friends like Coke, so sometimes we would do other things, to include me. So my one friend, he had surgery on his face, and he gave me and the other guy these painkillers. He was like, "These are the craziest painkillers," because he got hit and he had to have surgery like in the middle of his face. So they were some crazy painkiller. I don't even remember what they were called. And we crushed them up and snorted them, and I had the weirdest hallucinations. Like, I remember we tried to like walk around campus and be normal, but it would be like, do you see that? And we were not seeing the same things, but for me it would be like I'm walking and then there's like a boulder out of nowhere, and I'd be like, oh my God, where did this come from? Seemed so real. Didn't have any like, it just looked real as fuck. So there are things on mushrooms I've seen that we're not like that. On mushrooms, it was like, whoa, I know I'm seeing things that are here and not here, but there's like a movement to them. Like, oh, everything's moving. This was like, do you see that guy beatbox or not beatboxing? Do you see that guy breakdancing over there on the water? Totally looked like this guy was in the stream breakdancing. Didn't know who he was. Never seen him since then. Never saw him before that. And then another thing was in the stream in a different part, there looked like there was just an open box, an open cardboard box. That's so random. So I'm sharing that because, yeah, if you have done drugs, you at least have, beyond being sober and being a weirdo freak, if you are, just different levels of comparison there. Or I'm just oversharing. Level 1, visual noise. The most basic form of CEV perception that can be immediately experienced in normal waking consciousness involves a seemingly random noise of pointillistic light or dark regions with no apparent shape or order. This can be seen when the eyes are closed and looking at the back of the eyelids. In a bright room, a dark red can be seen, owing to a small amount of light penetrating the eyelids and taking on the color of the blood it has passed through. In a dark room, blackness can be seen or the object can be more colorful. In either case, it is not a flat, unchanging redness blackness. Instead, if actively observed for a few minutes, one becomes aware of an apparent disorganization motion, a random field of light or darkness that overlays the redness or blackness of closed eyelids. For a person who tries to actively observe this closed eye perception on a regular basis, there comes a point where if they look at a flat-shaped object with their eyes wide open and try to actively look for visual noise, they will become aware of it and see the random pointillistic disorganized motion as if it were a translucent overlay on top of what is actually being seen by their open eyes. When seen overlaid onto the physical world, this CEV noise does not obscure physical vision at all. And in fact, it's hard to notice if the visual field is highly patterned, complex, or in motion. When active observation is stopped, it is not obvious or noticeable and seemingly disappears from normal physical perception. Individuals suffering from visual snow syndrome see similar noise, but experience difficulty blocking it from conscious perception. So, noise stimulation here is two different examples. You could say this is like more of the red and the black. Level 2, light or dark flashes. Some mental control can be extended over these closed eye visualizations, but it usually requires a bit of relaxation and concentration to achieve. When properly relaxed, it is possible to cause regions of intense black, bright, white, or even such colors as yellow, green, or pink to appear in the noise. These regions can often span the entire visual field, but seem to be fleeting in nature. CEV noise stimulation with multiple color lights and flashing dot in this image. Level 3, patterns, motion, and color. This level is relatively easily accessible to people who use psychedelic drugs such as LSD. However, it is also accessible to people involved in deep concentration for long periods of time. When lying down at night and closing the eyes right before sleep, hey, or just before waking up, the complex motion of these patterns can become directly visible without any great effort thanks to the hypnagogic hallucination. The patterns themselves might resemble fractals. So I think this was supposed to be a moving image, but that's what I have there. Actually, okay, yeah. Level 3 without noise. Okay. So, yeah, the hypnagogic hallucinations are the idea of right before falling asleep or right before waking up. Interestingly enough, this is when your brainwaves are in certain states. So you have like access, you could say, to different states of being, being those state being a little subconscious. Level 4, objects and things. This is a fairly deep state. At this level, thoughts visually manifest as objects or environments. When this level is reached, stop it. Hey, stop. Stop it. Stop. Bob, he just woke up and he's all naughty. He's like, I just woke up. You should do what I want. No, you should do what I want. All right, how many more of these am I going to read? Okay. Yeah, so let me keep reading and then I'll end it here. Um, the where was I? At this level, thoughts visually manifest as objects or environments. When this level is reached, the CEV noise seems to calm down and fade away, leaving behind an intense, flat, ordered blackness. The visual field becomes a sort of active space, a side component of this ability to feel motion when the eyes are closed. CEV noise simulation with disappearing flashing image. So that's actually the caption to this image that's replaying. If you have this maybe like when you closed eye or in the dark meditate and there's like a violety purple swirling and then there's like images and then they fade away. Um, maybe. Opening the eyes returns one to the normal physical world, but still with the CEV object field overlaid onto it and present. In this state, it is possible to see things that appear to be physical objects in the open eye physical world, but aren't really there. What does that mean that aren't really there? You know what I mean? Like I know what you mean, but this is a holographic plane, so like it is there, even though it's not there. Like it can't just be like, and it's not really there. Like I get what you're saying, but like also let's expand this language a little bit, maybe. But again, speaking different languages using the same words. If we remember that, because again, I don't remember what website this is from, but it might be Wikipedia again. I should get better at that. I know I keep saying that. If we remember that the essential difference between what we call the real world and the world of imagination and hallucination is not the elements of which we build them up, but the sequence in which these elements appear, then it follows that the sequences directed from without then it follows that the sequences directed from without represent a limitation of the otherwise unlimited combination of the selected forms released at random from within, says that person. Level 5, overriding physical perception. So this is the one that is less rare. This level can be entered from a completely sensory deprivation as experienced in isolation tank or deep trance of hypnosis, but even then it requires great relaxation. According to lucid dream researcher Stephen LaBerge, perceptions can come from either the senses or imagination. An inhibitory system involving the thalamus, likely involving serotonergic neurons, inhibits imagery and perceptions from becoming too activated so they turn into hallucinations. This system is inhibited during REM sleep. Stop it. And imagination can freely run into the perceptual systems. What happens at level 5 is likely that the system is inhibited just like in REM sleep by different causes, just like sensory deprivation, psychedelic drugs, or meditative relaxation techniques. What is that image? It's like a pterodactyl. It's like a snowflake and a random image. I don't know. Okay, so what is not a CEV? An after image, that Pelinopsia image burn-in occurs when very bright objects lie in one's field of vision and should not be confused with closed eye hallucinations. Visual burn-in from bright lights is visible for a few minutes after closing the eyes or by blinking repeatedly, but the burn-in effect will slowly fade away as the retina recovers, whereas the waking consciousness CEV noise will not appear if observed continuously over a period of time. Entoptic phenomena. Hey, Bob. CEV does not include the entoptic phenomena such as floaters, which are instead caused by opacities in the vitreous humor and often appear as cells or strands or fields of... My eye floaters are like, no, we boo. They're all shouting, but that, yeah, I'm crazy, you know. Full closing and reopening the eyelids creates a very different wiper ridge in the tear film that is readily visible. Fully closing and reopening the eyelids also often stirs up the vitreous, which settles down after a brief moment due to gravity. Whatever. The motion of waking consciousness CEV noise is not so directly and physically controllable and repeatable. Blue sky sprites. So CEV does not seem to be related to the sprites, the blue field and topic phenomenon that can be seen as dots darting around when staring at up at a bright, again, that's the iron, that one. Bright sky on a sunny day, not looking at the sun. These dots superimposed over a flat iron, oh my gosh, flat iron background. That's not what that says, but I just wanted to give that visual right there. Okay. Iron particles. It wanted me to type it and be there. These dots superimposed over a flat blue background are white blood cells moving through the blood vessels of the retina. The motion of waking consciousness CEV noise is uniformly random compared to the waking consciousness blue sky sprite motion. Physical retinal stimulation. CEV is unrelated to the visual noise seen when the retina is physically stimulated, and this can be made to produce light patterns of visual noise simply by rubbing their eyes somewhat forcibly in the manner that increases intraocular pressure. Additionally, the retinal noise can be produced by touching near the rear of the eyeball, producing pressure phosphenes. For example, if one closes one's eyes, looks all the way left, lightly touches the rightmost part of their eye sockets. This produces visual noise in the shape of a circle that appears at the left side of the visual field. So, like, I'm sure you've done it before. We do this stuff when we're kids a lot, if you haven't. Um, None of these are closed eye hallucinations, but rather the experience of mechanical stimuli distorted into visual stimuli. So this says, thus pressure phosphenes are sensory distortions and not hallucinations, as the latter is an unreal perception in the absence of stimuli. Boo. Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up here. Um, and I'll be back. Who knows when I'll be back, but I'll be back. Bye. Thanks for being here.